I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how Louder Than Bombs came to being made.
Yeah, I did my first film in Norway called Reprise, and it was distributed in America. And a strange thing happened where suddenly I got all these offers to do American movies. And I'd lived in London for 7 years and been to the National Film School here. So I wanted to do something in English, but none of the scripts I was offered felt kind of like my kind of movie for some reason. So we sat down and started writing something, and all these ideas came up about family, about parent-child relationships, things that maybe are more universal themes. And then we tried to see whether we could get these great actors and do it in New York, and that was our mission.
Because I was going to ask about the actors. This cast is fantastic. And they're great actors in themselves, but adding in Devon, the newcomer, it creates the most wonderful family dynamic that you can really feel on the film. Was that purposeful? Did you want those actors at the beginning, or did that come about organically?
A lot of them, several of them I really wanted to work with. Some of these actors I've been admiring for years, like Isabelle Huppert. I'm a film nerd, you know. I've been watching her in movies since as long as I can remember. And she was very generous and reached out actually after Oslo, August 31st, my previous film, and was wondering if there was a project we could do together. So she was certainly someone I wanted to work with. And Gabriel Byrne, I've always been a fan of. His sort of the mix of intelligence and vulnerability that he has as an actor is quite unique. And Jesse Eisenberg, I think, is both very funny, and in this part maybe plays a little bit more of a vulnerable, more drama type character than he often does, which was fun. But then, of course, with great actors like that, how do you find a 15-year-old actor to play the little brother in the family? And that was probably what I was the most nervous about going into the film, was how to find a marvelous kid. A lot of American movies, you know, they cast a 32-year-old with a squeaky voice, and that's like a teenager. You know, it's not what I want to do. So basically, we had a wonderful casting director in New York, Laura Rosenthal, and we saw hundreds of kids. And then Devin Druid came in, and he's actually a really great actor. Yeah. With young actors, often people think it's a fluke or something, and it's not. He's really, in terms of craft, a remarkable actor.
Yeah, I mean, his dancing scene is absolutely fantastic. He feels very natural in the way he approaches each scene, which I think was important for this piece, because it did feel like a natural piece that was coming out. It was a natural family, and it was the dynamics I think probably all of us have kind of felt at some point, that awkward in your own family.
I mean, the film deals a lot with how we remember things differently. As a family, I think all families are concerned with trying to create the kind of a narrative. Who are we? Or do you remember this holiday? Or when you did that? And suddenly you can discover that you have different versions of that same reality. And that's kind of where the drama begins in this story. How there's a discrepancy between the point of views, particularly of how the three men that are left in the family, the father and the two sons, how they remember the mother that has passed away. And it's not an immediate grief drama. You know, it happens 3 years after she passed away, but still there are these memories and ideas of her, because she was this celebrated, famous photographer. And these memories that sort of percolate and affect their lives still. And that's sort of what the story is about, I guess.
Yeah. And then interspersed in that, you have some fantastic dream sequences, some great flashbacks. Do you think they're important to kind of keep the mystery and the ambiguity around her death? And
yeah, I mean, I'm a filmmaker. I grew up with sort of hip hop and punk music, and it was interesting that form had to be fresh and emotional, you know. So when we play around with different levels of reality and dreams and memories, it's not to complicate things. It's rather the opposite. It's rather to try to express the inner lives of these different characters. It's a very intimate movie, but it's intimate with changing perspectives. So you see, for example, the same scene from the perspective of a father and a perspective of a teenager, and you understand both, hopefully, but we kind of see their different realities at play.
Yeah. And what I liked as well is that you had them saying their own narrative over their scenes. I was wondering about the meaning of that, of having them almost in a third person describing their own.
I mean, a lot of people think that, you know, that wonderful, intimate feeling we get of characters in literature can't be done in cinema, and I completely disagree. I really want to get into the heads of these people and experience their internal life as well as what happens on the outside. And I think that's why I also use narration sometimes. I use montage sequences, all this kind of, I play around with form, you know, film's language can be fun.
Yeah. And I've got to ask, what's the difference in directing a film that you've written yourself compared to one when you've accepted a script?
The thing is, I've never done a film where I've accepted someone else's script, even though I've read some really interesting stuff. But I would say Oslo, August 31st, that we were able to write fairly quickly because we based it on a book. And we changed the story a bit, but it was still the sort of bottom line of the story, the plot. Louder Than Bombs took a long time to write, just because we had to come up with the whole thing, and we were so ambitious about wanting to portray every character in the family, hopefully as truthfully as we could, and to get the balance right was the kind of creative challenge of this one.
How long was it in total, do you think?
To write, I think it was something like 4 or 5 years. It's a ridiculously long time. I mean, I did Oslo August 31st in the meantime and everything, but it's been a long process, this film. But I'm very happy, and it was also about wanting to get the right actors.
Yeah.
Which was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to go to America to do film, was to work with these incredible actors. And I have to mention as well that in some of the other parts, it's an ensemble piece. And we have Amy Ryan and Rachel Brosnahan and David Strathairn, like really, really great actors that actually gave us their time to come and do smaller parts, but very important parts. So that was kind of a bit of a treat for me.
And I've got to ask, you said that you were writing it as well as doing your other films. Did your other films like Oslo, August 31st, and Reprise, any elements in that influence this film?
Yeah, in a strange way. I mean, Louder Than Bombs is taken from both my previous films. It has kind of the formal playfulness of Reprise, and I think more of the in-depth character portrayals of maybe of Oslo, that kind of intimacy with human and experience. So I think I learned from those two previous films as well.
Yeah. And I could ask, I know you're back in London at the moment and you just went to your old film school. We were talking about it a bit before, but I wanted to ask again how it feels to come back and be able to speak to people who are wanting to do what you do about your work.
No, it's a privilege to be invited back to the National Film School to talk. And I remember, it's been, 15 years or something since I was there. And time flies. And I remember very well how it was to be sitting in that cinema, listening to directors who've done feature films talk. So yesterday what I tried to do was to, as much as I can, try to talk about my personal experience of the difficulties and challenges and the creative specifics of doing feature films as opposed to short films, and what that journey has been, what that's been like for me. But ultimately, I mean, I think creative people are always developing, and I still feel I have a lot to learn, and I'm sure a lot of those students are very aware of what they're going through, and so anyway, it was nice to meet some colleagues and hang out.
Yeah. Did you speak at all about what it was that first got you interested in film and wanting to be a director?
I didn't actually talk about the beginning of my film fascination, but I mean, I could. I come from a film family background. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a film director. Both my parents were working in the movies, and I grew up on film sets, but also I grew up being taken to the cinema a lot, to the movies. And I still love it. I think I'm a filmmaker that come from the cinema seat, watching movies. I still do it a lot, and I just all kinds of films, old films, new films, genre stuff, personal stuff, arty stuff, all kinds of things. I still think that the going to the movies is still one of the last contemplative spaces left where most polite people turn off their cell phone, and you have at least a couple of hours to just contemplate on great stories. And that's more valuable now than ever, I find, because there's not so many spaces like that left.
Private spaces to actually just watch something.
Yeah, but you do it with other people, which is kind of a nice thing. Yet you can watch films about the experience of human loneliness, but you share it with someone in a room, and it kind of feels comforting and sometimes scary at the same time.
I've got to ask, what's next for you? What's next
I'm working, at the moment I'm working on a Norwegian film that we hope to get to shoot next autumn. I haven't sort of announced it yet, but it's going to be something more suspenseful this time, I think. We'll see. You
can't leave us with that much mystery, come on.
We'll see. And it's about a young woman this time. So it's a first time, which is by time, I think. I've made a few films now about men, and it's time that I explore a female lead, I think. That's going to be fun.
Definitely. Well, I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much.